Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Brony Debates Live. Sorry about that late start there. We had a little bit of a technical issue because OBS updated this week and changed all my settings, but didn't tell me. They gotta not do that anymore. Anyway, we got it fixed, and we're looking to have a really good discussion tonight. And tonight's discussion, Can You Be Too Positive, was actually suggested to us by Silverquill, who's joining us tonight. How are you doing, Silverquill?
I'm quite well, thank you. Thank you. See, I carry positivity with me in the form of a soundboard. And even if I flunk, I will be applauded.
I will.
Always.
I would not define that as positive in any way.
No, but it is narcissistic. And I can take it.
Okay, at least you're upfront and honest about it. Usually you gotta beat that kind of admission out of people. DJ, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Welcome, everybody. Greetings and bienvenue.
Yeah, I hope you all had a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. And I will admit, in my shame, I've forgotten what St. Patrick's Day is about. So I gotta do some history research.
Drinking and beer fights.
Doubt. I'm pretty sure it's a Catholic holiday. All right.
Actually, all you gotta do is watch the most recent episode of South Park. That'll see you through.
I don't think I'll do that. I've gone my whole life without watching a full episode of South Park, and every time I try, it just, I gotta leave. I don't think I've ever made it more than halfway through a full episode of South Park. I can't stand that freaking show. Anyway, Cordero, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, buddy. Good as always.
Good. And Cruiser, we waited up for you. How are you doing tonight?
Clear! Don't live on me, man! Come on!
That's kind of loud.
What is this?
We lost him. We lost him.
All right.
We lost Cruiser?
Yeah.
No, the cadaver I was working on.
He went for a cruise and didn't come back. They say he was cruising for a bruising.
He went on the final cruise, the burning longship, off to Valhalla.
The Disney Wonder.
Okay. Someone get a funeral dirge going. Words, I don't know. A dirge.
It was oh, God.
All right. Okay, so, real quick before we get started, let's give a shout out to my
That
very
wasn't
generous...
a dirge. That was a burp.
Let's give a very warm shout out to my generous supporters on Patreon, including those on the $10 and up tier, such as Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden, Girder, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who's with us tonight, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, Pony Cordero, who's with us tonight, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Sophia, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Please check out everybody's links in the description. They make some pretty good stuff. Alrighty then. So, Silver, I got two questions for you to kick us off here. Firstly, can you describe too much positivity? I'm sorry, let me reel that back a little bit. Can you define positivity? That's what I meant to say.
Oh, boy.
Defining positivity. I'm not going to look up a dictionary on this.
Yeah.
I would say bringing an energy that tends to uplift, encourage, or otherwise energize groups or individuals.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty then. So, why did you want to talk about whether or not someone could be too positive?
Well, over my time on YouTube, that's probably been the most consistent criticism of my work, that I'm too positive, that I don't draw enough attention to the negative elements. Or in the furthest extreme, I am called a shill, which is interesting because I believe to be a shill would require the transfer of money. I would like that part at least to be an actuality.
Oh, then you're a simp if you're not getting any money.
What? I don't... Now, shill sounds better than simp, though.
Right. You're right. It is worse.
Can we get the money at least involved in this? I'm very fixated on the money now. Let's talk about money.
I get people asking me if they want to advertise on my channel all the time, and I always tell them the same thing. Let me see your product, and if I like it, I will make my own video. And they're like, here's this 3.5 minute long script we want you to read at the beginning of and end of each video. And I said, no, you will give me money, and I will do what I want. Anyway, so so you've been called all these things, and then what happened?
Well, nothing happened. I don't really engage. I don't try to defend, but I do reflect and think, am I not calling enough attention to the negative aspects of a story? As well, it's fair to say if you don't like something, but at the same time, I feel as though, especially on YouTube, the negative tends to be overemphasized.
Agreed.
And so, in some ways, I start to think of my reviews as a counterbalance to massive negativity.
Yeah, I got started doing analysis for a very similar reason, and I think Cruizer got in for a similar reason as well. Is that correct?
To some extent, yeah. I do think some people were not necessarily being too positive, but rather we kind of discussed this in a previous debate about reviewers and if we were being too hard. And I think people didn't really think anything through. They were just trying to get a product out as quick as possible. And we think that they missed over a lot of things and came to the wrong conclusion.
Yeah, so that's I would agree there. So what do you think are how do you become too positive, Silver, and what are the consequences of that?
I think you become too positive when you are actively engaging in drowning out any thoughts or opinions to the contrary. When you are shutting down and in many ways guilt tripping people if they start to feel any sort of negativity, make it the problems with you, not with anything else. And as a result, the worst part of that is a feeling of guilt when you're acting in a negative. For example, for all you folks in the audience, if you're ever in a situation where you really didn't like something and everyone else would be gaga for it, there's nothing wrong with you. It's simply you didn't like it for some reason while other people are going on about this. It can be interesting to explore the why behind that, but your feelings are valid.
Well, thank you for justifying my existence.
Because
that's pretty much what I do. And I often get told I'm too negative. I get told when I'm that I'm too negative when it comes to anything else that's not Friendship is Magic, and then I've been called too positive when it came to Friendship is Magic. Something that FNGR once said to me that kind of stuck with me was that I force positivity. And he said that back when Dragon Quest aired, and I was like, wait a second, this flies in the face of everything we know about dragons, and I'm trying to figure it out. So, and I'm trying to figure it out in the sense of, am I wrong? Or am I wrong? Am I missing something? Or does this really fly in the face of everything we know about dragons so far this episode? And so I asked the Rift at the time about it, and I got a couple of explanations, and FNGR, being who he is, comes in and goes, get out of here with that forced positivity bull crap. If it's bad, just call it bad and let it be. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm trying to figure this out, man. I could use a little help. But anyway, that's been my experience with that kind of thing. So, for what reason? So where exactly do you draw the line where something is too positive?
Are we talking as a person or entertainment? Because they're two different things.
You know what? Since you're separating them, why don't you give me one of each?
Alrighty. Too positive a source of entertainment is when everything is so positive there is literally no conflict. Okay,
so we're talking about newborn
story.
Yeah, newborn cuties then. The G 3.5.
Well, I mean, even those had conflict. I had the unique pleasure of seeing a G 3.5 at Ciderfest.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I had
for life.
Yeah, I had the unique pleasure, as we can hear the PTSD flashbacks from.
It's just that I hear you. I know. I hear you say cuties, and I'm just getting Netflix PTSD from hearing the term cuties. And as that's crossing my mind, the first thing I hear out of Silver Quill is I had the unique pleasure, and I just lost it. I realized that joke was only in my brain. So welcome to my head and why I started laughing.
Yeah. Alrighty then.
Wrong cuties. Make sure you specify what cuties.
Okay. So I that apparently that was a bad example. So can you give me an example, Silver?
I give you an example. Well, yes, but it's not going to be an example that any of you know.
Mm-hmm.
So apologies in advance. I was part of a writing club. We get together and critique. And one night there was this attendee who'd never seen before, never saw again after. Had this book about a little girl zapping monsters. And throughout the entire first chapter, everyone is just doting attention on this girl. Everything's perfect. Everything's carefree, and everyone loves her specifically. There is no dark cloud in this first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I thought, oh man, I'm getting a cavity here. There was no reason to read chapter 2, because in chapter 1, everything's fine. And nothing goes wrong. And nothing grabs your attention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's entertainment. People, clearly it's a little bit more flexible. I mean, you can know someone who is really happy and energetic, but I feel like I haven't really gotten to know them as a person, and I can't fully call them a friend until I've seen how they handle a bad day.
Okay.
I mean, in some ways, I'm mimicking Tony Stark. I don't know. I can't trust anyone if I haven't seen their dark side yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes just, hey, it's okay to admit today's not going so great. How do you want to turn that around?
I see. So because of that, so that was too much positivity in a narrative sense. How do you define it when it comes to a person?
Oh well, that's my definition of a person is if I've never gotten to witness them having a bad day, if somehow they always have this, everything's perfect, nothing's wrong, we're all great here, we're all buds. And in some ways, I feel like they're being insincere with me.
Yeah.
It's
fake.
It's okay to have a bad day and to just ask yourself, how do we turn this around?
Yeah, or just take it on the chin and keep rolling.
But if you take it on the chin, I don't want you to pretend there isn't a bruise.
Right.
Because I can see the bruise.
Yeah.
Don't make me poke the bruise. Because I will poke it.
Yeah, you would be the type of dude that would poke it. So now that we've got our definitions out of the way, does anybody want to add or take away to anything that Silver said?
Well, I think at least when it comes to your reviews and people thinking you're too positive, I think for a lot of people, they're expecting you to play, as we said a few episodes ago, the angry reviewer shtick. Like they expect a tone shift in your videos or your reviews. And sometimes that's just not always necessary. As you said previously before, Silver, anger has become a bit of a gimmick with a lot of these reviews and critiques. And not everything is worth getting so angry about. I mean, there's definitely been times in MLP where they've done stuff that I really did not like, but it wasn't worth getting angry over for me.
Right. So, what do you do? Like, where's okay? So let me just ask you this, Cruiser. Where's your definition of too positive?
Too positive. Okay, if we're going to speak as well as in media and personality-wise, in media, I would say if you just skim over the bad stuff. To give one example, in the episode where they brought in the Smooths, I can't remember the name of the episode. Silver went on.
But keep Discord.
There you go. Silver made a good point about wondering if the Smooths was really necessary for the episode, and I think he, made a good argument about that. And he did it without being, like I said, without the tonal shift that I think people were expecting, and didn't just gloss over it. He explained why the Smooze was not a good foil for that episode.
Mm.
And I
What's
did
that?
it all while balancing on a Voice of Reason's chest. He was my life raft.
Mm-hmm. As for someone within a personality, when they refuse to acknowledge, probably something similar, where they refuse to acknowledge what was so bad. And they just try to say, oh, but look at the good side of the film. It's like, no, like that doesn't change the entire movie. Okay, like to give one example, The Last Jedi. A lot of people like to point to this one scene with Luke Skywalker towards the end. And while it was a good scene, it's still a bad movie. That one good scene does not make up for this bad piece of cinema. And for that person who just is clinging on to that one scene, to me, that is too positive.
Okay, so you're talking about people that ignore all of the detractors because of it has redeeming qualities, therefore it can't be bad. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
That I think we got a word for that. And it's been a word I've been hearing a little bit more in the last couple of weeks for other reasons. But last I checked, we tend to call that like whataboutism. Where it's either, well, what about this? This is a redeeming quality, or what about this? Because we're trying to make a point on somebody, but then it gets deflected into trying to bring somebody else unrelated into it. If that makes any sense. Do you think that what you said and what I said are compatible ideas, or are there differences between them, Cruiser?
Can you say that again? Because you cut out there for a sec for me.
Okay, so whataboutism, where it's either this can't be good, this can't be bad because it has redeeming qualities, or when you're talking from person to person and you try to critique something, and instead of taking that critique, they deflect it to somebody else that in their mind has similar flaws.
I'd say you're right about that.
Okay. Does anybody want to add or take away from what myself or Cruiser said?
I don't know. I just feel like my brain is in a blender because the framing of the toxic positivity debate has gone in a completely different direction than I thought it would. We kind of dabbled with what I thought we were going to talk about, but we're mostly talking about entertainment.
Okay, so let that be a perfect transition to my next question, Cordero, is what is your definition of too positive, and where do you draw the line?
Well, for me, I didn't even consider the entertainment factor. I wasn't looking at that angle whatsoever. So I guess to quickly speak to the entertainment factor, it's hilarious to me that Silver Quill gets accused of being too positive, and that Brony, you have ever in your life been accused of being too positive. That's hilarious to me, especially because everyone in the analysis community, not just the Brony analysis, but just YouTube analysis of anything, everybody is trying to be the next AVGN, and they're also trying to be the smartest person in the room at all times. And the best way to do that is to nitpick every single flaw they can find and describe it in the most extravagant way possible, and be like, look at me, how smart I am. So the fact that anyone could turn around and be like, oh, Silver Quill is just a shill because he's being too positive, never says anything negative about the show, that's a freaking breath of fresh air, because the entire market and the entire scene is just finding every little flaw you can in everything and showing everybody how smart you are and that you're just as charming as funny as the angry video game nerd. And spoilers, nobody is.
The angry video game nerd isn't even charming and funny, so...
Yes, he is. He actually very much is. His anger is an act, and he's one of the few people who was able to perfect that really, really nice, endearing guy pretending to be angry, and everyone is in on the joke and going along with it. It's a very tight tightrope to walk, and he's the first one that did it, or at least the best one who did it early on, and everyone's trying to replicate it, and it's really difficult to replicate it, and everybody fails at it. Even if they have decent analysis and decent jokes, nobody is the angry video game nerd, but everybody wants to follow that model. It's the classic example of somebody does something really well and creates a terrible trend. Kind of like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. Amazing show, The Daily Show. Every other fake news show that has ever come out of that trend has been absolutely horrible. Only The Daily Show with Jon Stewart was ever good. It's one of those things. Good origin, terrible trend. And I guess that's all I have to say about the entertainment aspect, because that didn't even cross my mind as being too positive. Because to me, if analysis is entertainment, if an entertainer is being too positive, who cares? Don't watch it, or they need to adjust to get a better audience. But if you're positive all the time and people are tuning in to your positivity, who cares? It's an entertainment project. It's not hurting anybody. Whereas what I thought we were going to talk about is how toxic positivity can actually be harmful, and the people who commit toxic positivity think they're the hero, and that's terrible. That's the framing I was looking for.
All right, so where is the common ground between these two issues?
I guess you could have similar things, because here's where toxic positivity becomes toxic and goes off the rails. You think, oh, it's looking on the bright side. How can that be bad? It can be bad because constantly being positive or telling people that they need to be positive can be very dismissive of people who are going through something or are having current actual problems. Like, so if your dad, let me give an extreme example. If your dad just died of cancer and you're all sitting into the hospital room listening to the heart monitor flatline, somebody turning to you in that moment and going, hey, look on the bright side. It doesn't matter what comes after their mouth, after, hey, look on the bright side, you're punching that asshole in the face. Now is not the fucking time. There actually is a time and place for everything, and there's also an anti-time and place where something is not appropriate, and that includes positivity. Sometimes you need to acknowledge that something bad is going on or something bad has happened, and allow somebody bereavement, or allow somebody to be upset, or just give them the space before you go to because the look on the bright side and healing and all of that stuff is great, but it needs to be done at its proper time. You have to go through the human process of processing emotions, and these people that are always like, well, you're just being too negative. Well, look on the, well, I've had stuff like that happen to me, and I looked at it. Shut the fuck up and let somebody be sad. There's a time and place, and now is the time to be sad. You can't be positive 100% of the time.
So, real quick, before we get to DJ, let me loop that back to Silver and hear what he thinks about, well, what you thought the conversation was going to be about.
Yeah.
Well, this mostly started with people commenting on my reviews, so I've approached it from entertainment. But I agree that people need the chance to acknowledge their feelings, their situation, and to just say, hey, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Okay, so I appreciate it if someone tries to add a bit of levity, but you're right, it is a time and place. And sometimes that the time and place is a week or a month later. You just keep your trap shut. Oh man, I remember when my dog passed away. Felt like there was an emotional fuse that blown in my brain, and someone was asking, so when are you going to get another dog? This was like 2 or 3 hours after we just said goodbye. I just thought,
Good example.
Why would you ask that?
Yeah. I mean, let me add on to that real quick. I raised rabbits for 10 years. It's been almost 10 years since I lost my rabbits. Last month, Heather asked me out of curiosity, do you ever think you might get rabbits again for yourself, get pet rabbits again? And I could not, still to this day, comprehend taking care of other rabbits.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, 10 years later, for some reason, and I still have dreams about my rabbits. I have this recurring dream where I wake up and I'm like, shoot, I haven't seen my rabbits in 2 months. I hope somebody's been taking care of them. And I'm looking all over the place for my rabbits.
wow.
They're always super hyper realistic. And then I wake up from that. And like I usually find them in just an incredibly disheveled state, and then I'm frantically trying to help them or save them or whatever. And then I wake up, and then it takes my brain a good 2 to 5 minutes to recalibrate reality, and it sucks. And I have that dream at least once a month. But
Wow, you have the I'm late for school dream, but for your rabbits.
yeah.
Dang.
Silver, in your situation, somebody says that to me 3 hours later, I probably I would not have reacted so nicely.
Yeah, honestly, I take it as a sign, okay, you're obviously not a dog fan, or you've never had a pet. Because you don't know what you're talking about. Or you would know that's not the question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Oh yeah, it seems ignorant. Or they deal with grief differently and are not considering that you deal with grief differently. Like I remember, when one of my cats died. I had a cat die tragically of a genetic heart condition when she was only a year old. So I was not ready to find my cat dead in the house at a year old. And obviously that hit me super hard. I had 2 cats, so I had the one surviving cat. And I remember right after the death, I'm like, man, we had 2 cats because we wanted our cats to have a companion, and the relationship was working well with the 2 cats. I'm like, I'm not sure I can go get another cat. I don't know if I'm ready for that or if I can handle that. And I wasn't sure how much time it was going to take. But then, like, literally the next day, I come home from, like, the store or whatever. And my ritual is I come home from the store, I open my door, both of my cats run to the door, and I say, hello, babies, to my cats. And so, like, the day after the cat's dead and I took care of all of that, I come home, I open the door, only one cat is there, and I go, hello, baby, and it has to come out of my mouth singular. And at that moment, I go, yep, getting another cat immediately. Can't handle it. As stupid as it sounds, I couldn't handle saying baby instead of babies. That was too painful. I have to get another cat. And that was just the unique way of me dealing with grief. I wasn't even sure myself. Do I need to wait a week? Do I need to wait months? Do I need to wait a year to get a second cat again?
Do I need to run it by my wife?
Yeah, well, obviously we talked about it
Okay.
and stuff like that, and it was just like that one moment like clicked into my mind. Yes, I want another cat, and I'm ready. And then even after I got the cat, my wife comes home. Well, effectively, my wife. We're getting married in 2 months from now. My fiance comes home with the cat from the shelter, picked one out, and I see the cat. I look at the cat. It's cute. It's adorable, and I want to pet it and take care of it. But I have no emotional connection to this cat. Zero. And I'm not able to dredge one up. And it's like, oh, it's been so soon since my cat died. My brain is not letting me get attached to this animal. And I would say it took about a month or so before I actually felt the same personal affection to my new cat the way I did with my other cats, which was almost immediately I developed a relationship. But these 2 cats weren't coming off the heels of any dead animals or any dead pets. I had no pets, and then suddenly I had 2 cats. So my grieving process was my brain or my heart or soul or whatever wouldn't let me attach to the new cat until I had time to process the grief of the previous cat. So the point of me saying all this is people process trauma and grief in different ways, and you might even process your own trauma and grief in ways that you don't understand until you're going through it. So somebody thinking that they're a helpful hero, going, oh, just look on the bright side. Oh, just get another dog. Or when are you getting another dog? When are you getting another cat? Whoa, why are you mad at me? I'm just trying to help. And it's like, no, you're actually being insensitive, and you're being an asshole right now because you're not considering other people's feelings. So it's one thing to be insensitive, but toxic positivity people tend to be both insensitive while thinking that they're a fucking hero, that they're a better person. And that's why it particularly pisses me off.
Well, that's a lot. Does anybody want to tag on to that before I move on to DJ?
Not really.
That might be the heaviest I've ever gotten on the show. I apologize.
No, it sounded like you needed to get it out. Thank you for coming to your therapy session.
Didn't know I was going to be doing that tonight. Didn't know I was going to bring up my dead cat tonight, but here we are.
Yeah, so Silver, what are you trying to say?
Well, I actually, oh gosh darn it, name's on the tip of my tongue. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Aslam?
No, the author. C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis would actually agree with you that one of the most frightening things is a person who thinks they're helping. You know, a tyrant will have a day where they just take a break, or they'll be distracted. But someone who believes that they are a grand champion fixing the world's ills, they would, and they're causing unintended or unaware harm, they'll never stop.
Yep.
And in fact, and in some ways, they are therefore far more frightening.
I agree. 100%. C.S. Lewis was a smart man.
I'm betting he encountered that himself more than a few times.
Yeah.
I wish I was in the room when it happened. DJ, where do you draw the line? When can somebody be too positive?
When can someone be too positive? Usually, in my experience, when someone's too positive, it's when it's at the point that they're basically denying that negativity exists. Like, they don't want to hear it. And if you try to have any sense of negativity at all, even if it's like a nitpick, they go off on you. It's like, no, it doesn't exist. It's all good. It's all good. It's all amazing. I see that in both entertainment and life, just as people only want the good things, and they'll try and cling on to that as much as possible. And it's usually a sign of something else is very wrong.
Yeah, and I would agree, and that would actually segue into my point of what, you know, positivity, being too positive or toxic positivity can look like. Because I am a Brony analyst, and unlike all the other Brony analysts, I am the smartest person in the room usually. I can tie both of these things together and show where there's real common ground here. Because Cordero was talking about toxic positivity as a human trait, and Silver Quill wanted to talk about from the entertainment side of things. Well, where I would draw the line of somebody being too positive sort of goes along with what DJ is saying, but it's I would broaden it even to a scope of whenever you're in a situation where you can't learn anything, and that goes for both entertainment and people. If you're ingesting your entertainment and nothing happens in your story and all your characters are a bunch of Mary Sues, then there's nothing to gain there. So why are you wasting your time with it, basically? And I can I will give it this, I can understand that in very small doses, because sometimes you just want to have a good day, especially if you just got done having a bad day. I can understand that. But not trying to live like that to a point where it becomes chronic escapism. And usually the type of people that create that kind of literature or that kind of entertainment are usually the types of person to apply the same principles to their lives. Now, for why they might try to do that, it varies depending on the person. Maybe they've had an incredibly sheltered upbringing. Maybe they've had an incredibly abusive upbringing, and the scope of that spectrum is quite wide. But at the end of the day, they don't want to learn anything themselves. They don't want to deal with any sort of negativity. They can't or refuse to have any level of introspection. So I see a lot of narcissism very common in people that write like that. And especially when you tell them, hey, this is kind of boring, or this story is bad. So the type of person, what I'm getting at here, my ultimate point is the type of person that Cordero is talking about and the type of person that Silver Quill is talking about are the same person.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so, and at least in my experience, more often than not, the same person. And when it's not the same person, it's a literal child who just brought you his, first third grade short story that he wrote as homework, and for some reason he's really proud of it. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna beat up the kid though. I'm just gonna be like, okay, cool. You just ask the kid what happens next. Where's the conflict? But even then, most kids will bring you a story that'll at least have one dinosaur fight in it.
Bring on the dinosaur
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, but I'd say a good 25% of film fiction doesn't actually, like 25% of the entries on film fiction, especially in slice of life and romance, and especially if it deals with a self-insert original character, absolutely no story there, absolutely no characters there, and if you try to bring that up, you get the authors just shut down.
Yeah, if somebody has a lot of writing under their belt and they're still making those fundamental mistakes, they either haven't gotten any criticism or feedback, or they are not listening to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I can, and usually the first time they get it, if it is the first time, they react the way you would expect a child to react, where it hits them really emotionally because they never had a chance to develop their immune system to that kind of thing. I remember there was a guy that used to be an analyst, and I think I accidentally made him quit because he sent me a picture of his OC, and he said, "What do you think about this?" And I said, I apologize, but I literally can't look at this. It is physically hurting my eyes. It was like the reddest of the reddest thing you could possibly imagine. It was redder than YouTube subscribe button against the most saturated royal blue coat I've ever seen. Right, with this neon yellow gradient on the hooves. Right. Someone out there in the audience, if they've been around for a few years, they might have deduced who I'm talking about. But anyway,
I think I know too.
yeah, and then I said, okay, show me one of your videos, and they weren't bad. They were what I would expect of a beginner. I said, okay, you gotta have a point to your videos here. You're just kind of rambling. It's not something that I myself would subscribe to. At the time, 27-year-old man started bawling in the call.
Damn.
Like openly weeping, like he had just found out his mother died. So,
I know what he did.
Yeah.
He made the content too personal. I had that problem with my writing and taking criticism. I remember this is like 10 years ago or something. Like I was writing stuff and I was really into what I was writing and the story I was telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't lash out at the people who gave criticism, but I got criticism, and it felt like somebody had personally attacked me or like punched me in the gut. And I remember thinking, I'm like, why do I feel this way? It's just what somebody thinks of something I wrote. And I had to kind of introspect and think about it, and be like, oh wow, it's too personal to me. The story as it is, I've attached myself too close to it, to where any criticism of it is a direct criticism of me instead of just a criticism of the work. And so I had to learn how to detach myself from the work in order to get better. So basically, my theory is that guy, every word he said on those videos and the OC he had made, he has tied himself and his own identity to that so directly that anything negative about it, even if you're just trying to help or point things out or saying, hey, it could be better, feels like completely invalidates him. That's how it felt to him, which is wrong, but you got to figure that out when you've done that to yourself and get yourself out of that trap, because you are setting yourself up to be annihilated, or just live in an echo chamber where people only say good things.
Additionally, if you live in that echo chamber and you can't handle any sort of introspection like that, then that has horrible implications on how you're going to live the rest of your life, because you're going to go and do whatever the heck you want thinking it's a good idea because you thought of it, and you're probably going to hurt people, and you're definitely going to hurt yourself. And when someone tries to say, hey, this is not a good idea, you're gonna take that too personally, right? Or you're gonna think they're attacking you when they're trying to help. So I've been rambling for a little bit here. What do you guys think of my theory?
Well, look what we've roundabout gotten into. Inappropriate positive reinforcement when it's not warranted is toxic positivity. If you just constantly enabling itself, the concept of enabling is toxic positivity. You're giving somebody enough rope to hang themselves, whether it's their drug addiction or their bad writing addiction.
Silver, what do you think of all that?
Well, part of me empathizes with this. I don't know of whom you speak, but I got to empathize. It can be hard to hear a criticism of work because you've put time and energy, and yes, maybe even a part of yourself. I would not tell people to detach yourself, but I would say you've got to learn to accept that pain. It is part of the creative process. Birth itself features pain.
If you're crying because somebody is calmly telling you what works and doesn't work on your content, you need to detach. That's my opinion. If it's so personal to you that you're brought to tears by someone saying, "Hey, this doesn't work and that doesn't work. Why are you crying?" That person specifically needs to detach.
For me, it's it's cry all you want later, listen now, and wrestle with it. It's okay to cry as part of the process, but
I feel like when you say don't detach, I'm sorry. I feel like when you say don't detach, you might be inferring that I mean don't be invested, because the stories I write now, I go into like rabbit holes and other universes in my mind, and I live or I think about being that character, and I go through the whole emotional roller coaster. So I'm very invested. I still get really into my stories and passionately write them. It's just that when I get it out on paper or onto the Google Doc, I still come back to reality and say, this is a product, or I don't sell it. This is a thing I've created, a project I've made, and that's what it is. That's where the detachment happens. I'm still invested in the creative process, but then once I create the thing, I make sure that if somebody punches it, it doesn't hurt me. That's the detachment I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think I understand. But I'm focusing more on a passion aspect, where I'm like, it's okay if you cry in private a little later. But can you accept this feedback? Can you listen to it? I find I often have to go away for a minute and focus on something else and let things cool, and then I come back to the critique with more open eyes and calm nerves. And that way I'm so I think we're in agreement. You have to be willing to accept the criticism. You have to be willing, and hey, you also need the strength to say, no, that person's full of it. But that needs to come from a place of greater surety than just your ego.
And a little bit of a self plug here. The last episode, the most recent as of this stream episode of Moral of the Story that I made, talked about that very thing, where if you're gonna put something out there into the creative space, you must first make peace with the fact that you can't control the reaction you're going to get to it at all. This was an analysis of the lessons in Fame and Misfortune. Right? So yeah, you've got to be ready for that. And as an example, when I started YouTube, especially because my points of view were very against what most of the other analysts at the time were saying about various episodes, I expected to be the unpopular opinion guy, and I expected to get all kinds of hate. So now, even to this day, 10 years later, whenever I get a nice comment on one of my videos or a Tumblr comic or something, one of two things crosses my mind depending on my mood that day. It's either, oh, that's a pleasant surprise, I'm glad I helped and I'm glad they enjoyed it, or this person has terrible taste, why are they poisoning themselves with my content? Yes.
A little imposter syndrome there?
Just occasionally, you know, you can, as a content creator, you can have a little bit of imposter syndrome as a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little
Helps
bit.
keep you grounded.
Yeah.
It helps keep you grounded if you have just a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, to Silver Cool's point, criticism should hurt you a little bit because I will concede that is evidence of your of how much effort and investment you put into it. Criticism should hurt a little bit. But yeah, if you're losing sleep over people's criticism, you know, that's when you need to take a step back.
Right.
Or sometimes start writing again. You know, you're not going to sleep. Get out of bed. Start making some changes.
Create more pain.
Actually, I find that helps me zonk out after.
And in the harshest criticisms I've ever gotten, that you know, where there was almost nothing positive to pull from, whatever this person had said to me. One of the best ways you can handle that is to find someone you trust and ask their opinion as well. Just show them now. Hopefully, like let's say for example, I get a comment about how bad my audio is, right? Then I'm going to go to somebody who knows audio better than me, and I'm going to say, what am I doing wrong? Does this guy have any merit? And hopefully we'll examine what I'm doing and see if we can make an improvement, right? But if I was just the type of person to shut down, just tell them they're wrong. So you got to know when to pull something out of that critique, or be able to differentiate when somebody is just slinging ad hominem at you for no reason. But if you find yourself saying, "No, this dude's just a hater," I'd say more than 50% of the time, then you probably need to do a little bit more introspection. There's probably something big you're missing.
Yeah, I agree.
I did. Go ahead, Cordero.
I was going to say, I did exactly what you're talking about. I have a pact with a fellow fan fiction writer where we review and read each other's works and give notes and stuff. And we both like each other's works and get each other's creative process and veins and where we're going. So we basically, what's the word? Not proofread, pre-reader or whatever the fan fiction term is. You know, I'm going to pretend we're professionals. We're each other's editor. I'm using the professional term, not the fan fiction term. We're basically each other's editor. And so we help catch each other's mistakes, and we're like, hey, I see where you're going. And we're not afraid to be like, that doesn't work. Like my other writer, I've literally had them say like comments in my Google Doc, this doesn't work. This doesn't fit what you're doing. And we can take that criticism from each other because we're coming from a place of, we like and respect each other's work, and we're both trying to make each other better. So that is a great partnership to have. I highly recommend you either get a mentor who's better than you to help you write better, or get a peer who's at a similar skill of you, and you sharpen each other's swords. That sounds kind of gay. I should have rephrased that.
I've used soundboards are officially banned. From now on, if you use a soundboard, I'm going to show up on your doorstep. All right, so there's DJ. I'm going to DJ you.
That wasn't me.
Okay. Who
This
was
is
it?
me.
Does it count if it's my mouth?
No, it does not count. But also I gotta be careful with Cordero. He'll kick the crap out of me.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see, like, if I play soundboard, will you be here in 30 minutes or less? Are you the pizza delivery of pissed off?
I'm the DoorDash of a can of. Yeah, you get where I'm going with that. Anyway, Cruizer, I haven't heard from you in a little bit. What do you think of all this?
Honestly, it just kind of sounds like we each have our own definition of what constitutes as too positive.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Cruiser, what do you think is there a way to reconcile all of our different points? Because we're all coming from a different perspective, and we all draw the line at a different place in the sand, but do all of those lines actually have any common ground where we can take away some uniformity from this?
I'd say so. I mean, personally, I always my term for Cordero, what you're speaking of, is what I call a middle ringer. Someone, and what that is yeah, picture a dartboard. The bullseye is the artist, and every ring outside the bullseye represents someone's importancy within the project. Until you reach the ring with all the numbers on it, that's the general audience. And I consider what you do as someone who's in one of the middle rings. Someone who is not directly involved, but is not quite part of the general public either. You're somewhere in the center. That's the way how I always kind of saw it, and I always believe that an artist needs that. And as far as all of our different definitions here, I'm not quite sure exactly where they would all meet up, but we all have a line in the sand. But I think the main thing we agree on is when people don't acknowledge when there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, if anything, this debate itself could very possibly be too positive, because we're all we've got 5 guys in a stream here, and everybody is saying yes, you can be too positive. There's nobody here to say no, you can't. There is no such thing as too much positivity.
Quick, get in the pony.
I don't know if you. I don't know if the absence of an opposite is necessarily a lack of disagreement. To bring it back to a common theme with us all.
Yeah.
I feel like where all these unite is when it starts to have an impact on people around the individual.
Interesting. How so?
Going back to the insensitivity of not giving people time to experience or admit their own emotions. That's taking a tough situation for another individual and making it even worse. Because now they've got to contend with you and your frustrating forced optimism. Or it's someone who is making a product that is not really, you don't think is going to entertain people. It's not encouraging creativity in others. It's just sort of a burden, and they aren't willing to handle it. Again, it's creating a drain on others.
Mm.
And when you're just not willing to see a negative or acknowledge a negative, and you start to, question or try to make the other person feel guilty for having a negative opinion or just having a tough mood,
mm-hmm.
Again, you are having a negative impact on your fellow human being.
Does anybody want to add or take away from that?
Going off what he started with. Go ahead, Concert Cruiser. I do a lot of talking.
I guess you could say this could come down to Starlight Glimmer and what she tried to do with that town of hers.
Well, that goes right back to C.S. Lewis and the zealot who believes they're doing something for your good is going to be far crueler than any tyrant. Because, I bet you King Sombra give him a time. It's like, dang, what have you been up to?
Sorry,
I gotta get the new Sombra
with
voice.
good intentions.
King Sombra knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew he was doing it purely out of revenge. So I don't know what to tell you there. I don't think he would have looked at Starlight and said, hey, she's more evil than me because she thinks she's doing good. I think he would have looked at her and said, oh, that's a rival.
It would have been a good way to tear her apart, though.
Have him come up. Hey, do you want to go to the evil villain mixer later? I'm not a villain. Sure, you're not.
You just took away the wills of hundreds of ponies. Totally not something I would do.
He's like, you're still in that phase of villainy. That's cute.
Well, they both used different forms of mind control. So, Paladin Pony T asked a question that I want to ask in a little bit. But before I do that, I actually haven't heard from DJ in a little bit, so I want to know what he thinks about all this.
Honestly, I don't think I have anything to add at this point. Really, we've kind of set our common grounds. Well, we all seem to be pretty close in where we draw the line. We have different points at it, I think, but I don't know. I think I'm out of stuff, especially since Cordero had to give me the gut punch of dead pets.
Yeah,
yeah, sorry for bringing everyone down.
He spent the last 30 minutes thinking about his own dead pets, and hasn't been able to contribute. Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Same with everyone in the audience. Everyone in the stream is just thinking about dead pets now. But to respond to what you kind of cheekily said, Brony, is that the absence of disagreement is not toxic positivity or too much. And just as the presence of disagreement is not negativity. To give a serious answer to what I think was a joke.
It was as most things I say, it's half a joke, but the best comedy is always rooted in truth. So let's talk about that though. Would this debate have been different if we had also included Finn or Dr. Wolf, who are both quite famous for almost never having anything bad to say? I think the closest I've ever heard either of them get in terms of, like, say when they're doing an analysis of an episode or a review of an episode of Friendship is Magic, is they'll say, perhaps this could have done better. But even to that point, I almost never hear either of them say exactly how. When they say that, they just move on to the next point, which is usually something glowing in its praise. And I've certainly never seen either of them come out with a video saying this is bad and I'll tell you why. Right? So are Finn and Doc too positive?
No.
I would have to say no. Just because, while I do think they try to find the good in everything, they will still acknowledge the bad. They just won't lead off with it.
Yeah.
At least a lot of what they do is try to make their criticisms constructive, rather than the classic destructive that gets all the YouTube views.
Yeah. It's an entertainment product. You can't reasonably harm people with an entertainment product. Therefore, it's not a problem. So they can be as positive as they want. Back to the point I made earlier, they can be as positive as they want. If that gets them an audience, that's fine. Because you can't damage someone by being too soft on a TV show.
Even if you're reinforcing, what do you say? What might you call it? Like a delusion?
Well, enabling a delusion. But what's the delusion? That My Little Pony is good and there's nothing wrong with it?
Well, as I talked about
where's
earlier,
the harm in that delusion?
As I talked about earlier, that can be a symptom of applying it elsewhere in life, and it often is.
Well, if I may, Brony, the issue with it is not the lack of negativity. The issue with toxic positivity comes when you reject the negativity. And we're not seeing rejection of it, we're just not seeing it. Okay. We're not seeing it being prodded and poked and paraded out.
Yeah.
Yeah, to give one example. Just not their
approach.
To give one example, there was a cartoon show that Finn really turned me on to, and that was called We Bare Bears. And they did their farewell made-for-TV movie, like every cartoon series usually gets. And in the review, the thumbnail alone says why it's worth watching. But in the video, he does say, yeah, this isn't good.
Interesting.
And to him, it's worth seeing, but it's clearly not their best work.
If I could double back to where not exploring a negative could be harmful.
Go for it.
Okay.
The episode One Bad Apple, where Bab's seed is introduced and she's bullying the Crusaders, and there's Sweetie Belle's life so ironic. I remember when that episode aired, a lot of people were relating similar experiences where a friend who was bullied became a bully, but not a lot of discussion of how incomplete that message was. That bullying takes many different forms, and there are many, many different motives. It was an oversimplification. And I think if all you do is point to the positive of that episode and, oh yeah, see, this is totally like what I experienced in life, that's reinforcing an incomplete image. I think it's worth talking about, okay, but here are some other reasons why bullying occurs.
Yeah.
You're presenting an incomplete picture, and while I trust audiences to be aware and to have their own curiosity, sometimes I think we're also intimidated into going along with the crowd if we start to hear too much of one opinion and not enough of another.
So the analyst community, if the analyst community is overly positive about an episode that has an incomplete picture of bullying, people watching the show and the analysts might think that that incomplete picture is the full picture of bullying and take that to the bank in their minds, and that could cause harm. I mean, I suppose that's theoretically possible, but do you see how roundabout that is? Like it's so the potential harm here is so remote that it's like, well, I don't want to sound like a prick, but do we care? Is that important enough to care about?
I think anytime you put out a message, you want to care about its impacts, even if it's just incidental.
Because remember, the show is the one who had the bullying message, and we're talking about the impact of analysts pointing at that and saying that's a good message or that's a good portrayal of the message or not. You said that we have added several layers of abstraction here and several dimensions of audience to the point where, like, I don't know, it's at that point it's so convoluted that it's like I don't know. It's just not. To me, it's just not even worth going over. In the sense of isn't harmful. It is worth going over in the sense of how well did this show do portraying bullying or not. That's worth discussing. But whether or not, are we doing our job to make sure that this incomplete message doesn't do harm? Who cares?
Interesting. So let me ask the other, well, actually specifically, let me ask the two folks on this panel that aren't necessarily analysts about the three on this panel that would call themselves analysts. So take Cruizer, for example. Cruizer talks about music, the music of Friendship is Magic in his videos. And I could be misremembering. My memory has been absolute trash the last year or so. But Cruiser, you don't have very many videos that don't really tackle Friendship is Magic, right? In terms of the music?
Not really. I kind of just analyze the music and what they're trying to do. Does it work? Does it achieve? Does it really connect with what's going on? I definitely have my own personal thoughts about Friendship is Magic and some of the writing that's used, but I've never really made a video diving into that.
Okay. So because he talks about the music and regardless of whether or not he believes the song served its purpose in there, it could possibly be it often is irrelevant to how good or bad the episode itself was. But let's say he really loved Cruiser. Can you give me an example of a song you really liked in the show, where the rest of the episode or rest of the movie or whatever was just freaking awful?
I wouldn't say this was awful, but probably the Legend of Everfree theme song.
Shoot, yeah, that is a really good song. That's one of the few songs in the franchise I listen to unironically. And yeah, I did not enjoy Legend of Everfree. So I would agree with you there.
Okay.
So,
Repeat the formula.
We're Canadian. We had some great lines in that. We had some great lines in that video, though. I still love pulling up the part where you freaking dome me with a guitar.
Yeah, and I still love the fact that the voice of Timber Spruce, Brian Doe, watched the video.
Yes, that is that'll swell your head a little bit. Anyway, because Cruizer talks about the music and not about all the other bad stuff in the episode, is Cruizer too positive?
No.
I've definitely made some criticisms about some of the songs, and I mean, God, like the one where I turned on the angry reviewer shtick was "I'm on a yacht," and
that's a good one to go off on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
So gross. That one was so gross. I mean, if Concert Cruiser put out a video that basically said Daniel Ingram's My Little Pony music is the same thing as Metallica, there is no difference, I would say he's wrong, but I wouldn't say he's hurting anyone. Like, it wouldn't matter to me in that case. He'd be hilariously wrong, though.
Okay, so then let's turn our attention to Silver Quill then. Now, Silver Quill, you've been called a shill, and you've been called a simp. But it sounds like you're seeing things in a different perspective than what other people are seeing. Am I correct? Like your videos tend to take things in a little and your points and back them up with a lot of academic literature, right? At least that's what I've noticed.
I try to read up on stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine made the joke. Most people make a video. Silver goes to the library.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of times where you've said in your video something to the effect of everybody seemed to dislike it for this reason, but this appears to be what it was trying to do. So is Silver too positive?
I stand by with what I said earlier. No, he just doesn't turn on What? What?
What?
What?
Is there a beat?
I heard Cordero go, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Alrighty then. So,
anyway.
Yeah, continue your thought.
I'd say no. I just think people were expecting him to change the tone of the review and be all pissy and angry, and that's just not what he presents. You don't have to get angry or pissy to represent negativity in media or storytelling, whatever. Frankly, that's too easy in my opinion anyway. And by the way, if they're going to call this guy a simp, have they not seen his weightlifting videos?
Well, being a simp and being able to lift weights are two completely separate things.
Yeah,
it still shows you don't want to possibly get into a fight with him.
Well, I mean, it's just that I like to weigh in.
Oh boy.
Oh, man.
If they really think he's a simp, they just need to watch his season 4 review.
I should Silver.
He tears apart the rainbow power.
Silver,
that's not doing anything for Hasbro.
Yeah, Silver. The use of your soundboard is really weighing me down here.
Oh, well done.
He beat me to it.
Ah! I gotta not have the two of you on the show at the same time. I keep forgetting there's two freaking soundboards now, and
plus a guitar.
Cruiser, I swear to God, I know where you live. Anyway,
you haven't been to my new house.
You actually right. Heck. Just hold on. Let me just get this taste of my own foot out of my mouth. All right, so then there's me, right? And I'm the worst of them all because I barely talk about the plot of an episode at all. For the sole purpose of being different, because like Cordero said, everybody in 2013 was on the try to be angry video game nerd, try to be Doug Walker, sort of train, or try to be Spoony train, or try to be who else was it? Who's the guy that just droned on about movies that nobody knew about? Sort of looked like me, but somehow even uglier.
Oh, the Cinema Snob?
The snob.
Cinema Snob, thank you. I'm glad I said looks like me, and everybody just knew what I was talking about.
Actually, I had to conjure up my memory review from Everfree Northwest. Coupled overlay and experiment tint.
Yeah. So everybody was everybody was trying to do that, and I'm like, just want to have a different formula, which is why I split a buck to the face and moral of the story. So I talk about, I react to the episode, and I tell a story that plays parallel to the episode or relates to it in some way. And then I just talk about whether or not the lesson behind it was applicable. Now, I've had a few people call me too positive over the years because I never seem to have anything wrong with the moral. There's 2 or 3 occasions in the videos I've made so far where I did have a problem with the moral, or I did, but for the most part, Friendship is Magic, as far as I can tell, is one of the best shows of all time and has extremely good moral lessons to give at the end of each episode, and 95% of the time does an extremely good job of demonstrating how you can run into these pitfalls and how to fix them and then how to avoid them. And I break that down into more plain and simple terms, because if the friendship letter segment of seasons 1 and 2 took 5 to 8 minutes, nobody had watched the freaking show, right? So that's
true.
Yeah, but that's what I do. So, am I too positive because I never have anything bad to say?
No,
I wouldn't say that. Mostly because, based on the moral of the story videos I've seen, you're more about the application of the moral rather than necessarily how the moral is portrayed in the story. You definitely get caught up more on how you can use the moral rather than actually reviewing how it's used in the show. At least that's been my experience watching your videos.
Not to mention also, a lot of people say, what you're doing is reviews, and like, no, not really. Buck to the Face is really just kind of riffing.
Yeah, Buck to the Face is closer to reaction, and if anything, moral of the story is closer to analysis. But those were the hairs. I mean, I haven't had to split those hairs since 2013, where we had the biggest debate in the fandom was, or at least in our side of the fandom was, all review. All analysis is review, but not all review is analysis. And people who thought they were analysts got super offended by that.
Yep.
Back in the days where the worst thing was the trauma of butters. I'm strangely nostalgic for this.
I was thinking for a second you were gonna say biter, and then the word you said started with a B, and I'm like, he better not actually do it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a
Biter okay?
Probably.
Has anyone checked on that guy? Is somebody still holding him at gunpoint and making him review the pony show that he clearly hates?
Geez, yeah, that's a character not. I don't know if the chat would remember, but anyway, so we got one who doesn't think I'm too positive, one who or at least 2. Cordero, did you want to weigh in on that?
Well, to play along with you, because I think it doesn't matter what you say on your moral show, it's not a problem or harmful or too positive. But to play along, if you were ignoring bad things in your moral of the story review to just always be positive all the time, then yeah, that would be a problem. But if you're genuinely rarely finding things to nitpick or things to have problems with because the show does that good of a job at the moral aspect, then no, you're not being too positive. That's just the nature of what you're doing. That's just the nature of the product you're reviewing. That if you're reviewing something that's exceptional, you're probably not going to find a whole lot bad. And I find it way more egregious to fish for things that are bad just so that you can sound smarter, which is what literally everybody else does.
All right. So I think that's the only combination, the only questions I had for that. Did anybody else want to add anything before we get into audience participation?
Yeah, about the rest of my pets that died.
Where's
That's
the
all
bleep
you could
button?
Cordero's over here like I had a cat named Snowball. She died. Mom said she was sleeping. She lied. Why oh why is my cat Snowball dead? Why couldn't that truck hit me instead?
If the toilet goes to Mom, if the toilet sends the goldfish to heaven, is that where all my shit went?
Gross.
Angel of Speed says, I hate to say it, but the people who say you're too negative towards shows that aren't Friendship is Magic are usually correct. He's directing that one at me.
I mean,
Well,
you are.
Listen, it's not my fault. Everyone else sucks. Okay, be good at your job. If I can do your job better than you, you've got a real problem. I shouldn't be better than anybody. I suck. All right.
Watch shows that are recommended to you, so you can't really even say that.
Which shows did you recommend to me again? We did
Well,
watch. We did
Scooby-Doo
watch.
Mystery
Yeah,
Incorporated.
we did watch Mystery Incorporated together, and that was good. I enjoyed that.
High Guardian Spice. I heard it's great.
Cordero, I will suplex
You have
you.
some issues here, Cordero.
Is today opposite day?
No,
Yes.
you missed it a couple of weeks ago, Silver. Cordero got on the stream. We started talking about High Guardian Spice, and he's like, "Oh, this actually looks good. I'd want to see this. This looks amazing."
I said the stills of the art looked good. That's what I said. I said, "Oh, I like the art style from stills of the art." I've never watched the show.
Yeah, and I don't. Meanwhile, Steven Universe was pretty discount itself. I don't know how you managed to be a discount Steven Universe.
Damn.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. All right, let's get into audience participation here. Herman Sillo earlier said, "Toxic positivity is why you make dumb decisions because you're so happy, and then it seems like a good idea."
That could also mean the other way.
How so?
Well, you tend to make bad decisions if you're drunk or stoned. I mean,
Okay.
The comment seems to be making the delusion argument we were making earlier. Where, like, if you delude yourself all the time with positivity, then you think that every decision you make is a good one, and then you run into a brick wall of you were wrong.
Although I wouldn't say that it's necessarily rooted in being so gosh darn happy. I think it could be just as easily rooted in fear of confronting negative emotions.
True.
All right, so the next one we've got is from HRB. Says, I value positivity a lot, but I do get that it can be overdone. You can't improve if you never hear or accept constructive criticism. And I do believe we've tackled that point a couple of times tonight.
Yeah.
Ruby Shine says, but what about too much negativity? Is it just as bad as too much positivity?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and probably worse.
I would have said worse, because at least with too much positivity, there's usually good intention behind it. Granted, there could be an exception of, like, you might be encouraging this person to do things the wrong way so that they, don't surpass you in any way. And I've certainly met people that do that. Or does anybody remember, oh God, I forgot the movie. It was an old Kung Fu movie, and they were like, oh yeah, that guy, we hate his guts and we can't get rid of him, so we train him wrong on purpose.
Oh, Wimplau of Kung
Pao to the fist.
Was that Kung Pao? You see, I thought
wrong as a joke.
Yeah, I thought it was Kung Pao, but I'm like, no, that feels wrong.
It is Kung Pao.
Oh yeah,
It is that one.
Yeah, I've certainly seen that happen in real life. But when somebody is just being malicious, it's not only blatantly obvious, but there's just nothing to gain from that. They're trying to tear you down because they got their own misgivings that they need to project outward in order to cope with them. Let's see here. Pokemon Fire Eevee says, as someone with mental issues, I can't tell you how many people ask me, why can't you just stop being mentally ill? Life is too good. And I think that plays into the toxic positivity that Cordero was talking about towards the middle of the stream.
That's absolutely what I was talking about. Like it's you're dismissing or discounting somebody's struggle. It's like, oh, just just look on the bright side. Just think about, oh, you're depressed. Just think about the things in life that make you happy. Just try getting some exercise or spending time with family, or you should really be counting your blessings because there's a lot of people in the world worse off than you. That's all toxic positivity, because depression and anxiety doesn't care how good your life is actually going. It hits you regardless. And it is a legitimate thing that people go through and struggle. And toxic positivity will discount that.
Yeah, now let me here's something I've always been curious about. Because I've never been clinically depressed. At least I don't know that I have never been but I don't feel like I've ever been clinically depressed, but everybody here knows I've been through it, right? So
Yes.
Yeah.
And my parents used to tell me all the time, you need to be more optimistic, and I kept trying to tell them, no, I'm just a realist, and as far as I can tell, there's no way out of this situation that I'm in right now unless something drastic changes. Now there's that, but my depression was a lot more situational. When I'm dealing with somebody else in a situation who might be in a situational depression or might be in a clinical depression, I at least try to figure that out. So Cordero, I want your feedback on this. Is it helpful to just like to ask why they're feeling the way that they're feeling and try to work on it from there?
Yeah, that's asking why isn't dismissive. Or at least in as you're presenting it, it doesn't seem like there's like, oh well, what? Yeah, like, oh, well, can you explain it to me why you feel this way, or what, or like that seems fine. If anything, it's like an acknowledgement, or you're giving them the opportunity to help you understand. That's like saying, help me understand what you're going through, because I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. And instead of just telling you to be like me, I want to understand what you're going through.
Right. So So usually what I do when I'm trying to help people is I'll start with that, but then eventually I'll get into something along the lines of, well, tell me everything in your life that you're grateful for, and the intention behind that is just to get you thinking about things that are better, and in the hopes of that might help you find a solution to help you feel better, to get you into a better spot, or to start giving you the tools to pull yourself out of it if you're capable of doing so. So what I'm trying to say is jumping right into just feel better, just hey, life is good, is pretty dismissive. But is it okay to like go through those first couple of steps of understanding before I start suggesting solutions, potential solutions? What do you think about that?
This is good. Now we're getting into like the nitty gritty of it, because all of those things that people always say, like, count your blessings, do things you like, spend time with your family, focus on the positive, diet and exercise, all of these things that can help improve your physical and emotional state. These are all important things to do. And the thing is that usually people who suffer from depression and anxiety know all of this already, and actively some of them don't, or actively are doing all of this stuff. So that's why just the act of being like, well, have you thought about the positive things or counted your blessings? Have you tried exercising? Have you tried just focusing on things you like? It's sort of like, well, if somebody has clinical depression and anxiety, that's a no shit. Of course I've tried those things. Of course somebody has told me to try those things. So even just bringing it up can come across as dismissive. It's like, oh great, I get to have this conversation again with another person.
Right. Now, how much of that mentality is the responsibility of we'll just say the depressed person right there? Because I could ask you, I could ask this person, what have you tried? And and they could tell me they've tried X, Y, and Z. But and I've had this happen before where it's like, well, they've tried all. They tell me they've tried everything, and I say, well, okay, what exactly did you do? And after a few minutes of just asking questions, I come to find out, no, you actually haven't tried. You actually haven't actually put any sort of effort into anything. And now, so now we're getting like a conflict of opinion between me and this person, where they don't want to put in any of the effort.
Don't want to put in the effort. Yeah, it's definitely case by case.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely case by case with people. But as far as like I don't want to have this conversation with another person again. As far as it being too far, or when does somebody have responsibility, or should you even ask in the first place? If you ask someone, well, have you tried these 6 obvious things that anyone in the world would think to try? If they say yes, and they demonstrate to you that yes they have, but then the person doesn't accept that and keeps just saying, well, no, you obviously haven't tried those things. That's to me, that's when you're crossing the line. Because if I were like a clinically depressed or clinical anxiety or any of that, because I'm definitely not clinical, or at least I haven't been diagnosed myself with any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going through that, I would give most people the benefit of the doubt, because it's like, yeah, people are gonna try to tell me the same things over and over again. But what would bother me is if I say, yes, of course, I'm exercising, I spend time with my family, I count my blessings, I do all of this, and I still suffer from depression, and the person tells me, well, obviously you're not, because you're not trying hard enough, or I'm implying you're not trying hard enough because it's not working. The evidence that you're still anxious and depressed means that you're not trying hard enough. That's what gets really irritating. It's like, no, I told you that I know all this stuff and I tried it, and you're not accepting my answer, which means you're not you're kind of overstepping your boundaries now. And all of that is case by case, because like you said, I believe you that you ran into people that have told you, I've tried all of that stuff, and it's like, you're not really trying. Like it absolutely goes both ways. People are toxically positive, and there's also a lot of people who've gotten the clinical diagnosis who really aren't trying at all, and they're just holding the diagnosis as their badge or their excuse to just be down all the time.
Right.
Both are true. It's case by case.
I would definitely say it is too, and that's usually why when I'm doing that, I try to get people
get a read.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've got a little bit of a big head, because I have
little.
Yes, I've got a little bit of a big head because I have helped people in the past, and I have repeated the results on right. So I'm confident in my abilities, and I'm confident in my knowledge, and I believe I've earned what little confidence that I have. So that's usually why I say, hey, let me like if somebody tells me they're for example, exercising for their depression, right? And I'll say, well, that sounds fun. May I come and exercise with you? And I'll see if they're, and from there I can tell if they're actually putting forth the effort for things like that. So that's, I don't know, that's just my mentality on it and how I go about it. And I genuinely didn't know if that was a good approach. So thank you for enlightening me there. Moving on, Clayton Hess says, excessive positivity negates the entire human experience.
That's a strong way of putting it, but yeah, kind of, yeah.
He's out of line, but he's right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Does anybody disagree?
It can.
It shuts out half of humanity, because I would say humanity exists in both positivity and negativity, and you need both.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, so an extreme in either way is denying the other half of existence.
Everything in balance. Crazy Whore 116 says...
Crazy Whore.
Yeah. That sounds like wife material to me. Says this is probably...
Hi, Mom. Meet my crazy whore.
This is probably why some people hated Joy from Inside Out. Now, I'm pretty sure this is in relation to when we were talking about Mary Sue's earlier, and also I've never seen Inside Out.
It would have been the story of Inside Out is the emotions within a young girl, and how the one who's Joy is trying to keep the girl constantly in joy and rejecting all forms of the sadness emotion. And it causes the whole mess. I don't really care for the movie itself, but has decent message.
So I've seen the meme before, but is this movie literally what if the feelings had feelings?
Yes.
Holy
I mean, that is kind of the funny thing. Joy does have several low points within the movie. It's not like she is not one note, but a big part of it is her.
It's the whole plot.
Her enlightenment is coming to understand the need for diversity of emotions.
Let's see here. AI Max has a lot to say. He says, for starters, it's better to be numb to your emotions than be ridiculed for having them. Let's see here. The community, when it comes to dealing with any kind of drama, the Brony community he's referring to, is ignore it or pretend it never happened. Toxic positivity is the only thing that's keeping the community afloat. That willful ignorance, the dismissive arrogance, the general immaturity. What do we think about AI? What AI Max has to say?
Okay, so first off, the Brony community is not a monolith, for one thing. It's definitely in many different parts, and they don't always interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to know what parts of the fandom this person's interacted with.
His,
every fandom has its bad people,
I happen to know he's not even in the fandom, but he got his introduction to the fandom when he heard about us from the outside when we started having some real problems with Toon Critic way back in the day, and he's just latched on to that ever since.
So AI Max is basically the definition of toxic negativity.
It would appear so.
He's the exact opposite extreme of what we've been discussing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yep.
Well, because toxic negativity, I think, is for sure worse and has higher potential for harm. But toxic negativity is way more obvious because, duh. Whereas toxic positivity is harder to see because it's ostensibly positive. So it's harder to see the harm in toxic positivity.
Because people want positivity.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, how can it be bad? I'm saying to look on the bright side. I'm the good guy.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this: I've been to several conventions that aren't Brony conventions, but I definitely prefer Brony conventions. The other ones just get freaking weird.
I don't know, anime ones can be fun when they're not party cons.
Depends. Paladin Pony T says, is it hard for you guys to stay positive because of what's going on in the world?
Dude, I work at a hospital. I'm surrounded by dark clouds all day.
Right, so, but that doesn't answer the question. Is it hard?
You get used to it.
Yeah, Silver, what were you going to say?
I was actually going to quote a doctor, not talking to me, talking to my mother, in fact, saying we should just put Prozac in the water at this point. Everyone's struggling right now. It is hard to stay positive when the negative is, I would argue, amplified. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is hard to describe. The news we see, especially things going on like the conflict in Ukraine, fully awful and just disheartening. But then you also have the social reaction to those events, which may compound a feeling of frustration or helplessness. And as a result, I think it is hard to stay positive in very difficult times. And I'm not going to say that there's an easy fix. I'm just going to say that it is an investment of energy, but I do think it is a worthwhile investment to find even just little things to keep you going.
Indeed. And we have a word for that. It's just hope.
The touch of faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter what kind of faith, but faith.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, laughter is so important. That's your immune system. That's your ability to fight off the bad and overcome it. So yeah, that's all there was for the comments and questions that I saw. Did anybody else see any chat they wanted to tackle?
No, not really.
I'm just going through and looking at the comments, and I guess what I might respond to AI Max in the chat is, have you tried looking on the bright side of life, AI Max? Maybe some exercise, or just really counting your blessings. You know, there's so much good in the world. Do you really need to be so negative all the time? Just take your medicine and be better.
This is what happens when you let a troll go after a troll.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing that. making a hypocrite out of yourself.
What are you talking about? I'm trying to help him.
Don't you gaslight me on my own show.
Although, is anyone else
I just want to help people. Why are you attacking me?
Is anyone else having flashbacks to Monty Python and the Life of Bryan?
I didn't see that one.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Okay, believe me, just watch a clip on YouTube. You'll see the visual contrast to the song.
Yes.
Oh.
Nice, gentle PG way of putting it there.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty then. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up there. So let's go around. We'll go around the table. I want to hear a summary of your points for tonight and one thing you learned. Silver Quill.
Well, I do believe that there is such a thing as toxic positivity, and that it is at its worst when it has an impact on people around you, as it has gone from an internal struggle to a negative impact on the surroundings. I don't believe that just defaulting to the negative is a good correction, but encourage people to look for a balance between the two. The full human experience is both joyful and terrible. Something that I learned tonight, maybe to lighten up on whether or not a video is going to have that big an impact on folks.
All right, Cruiser, sum up your points and one thing you learned.
I really wish I had that South Park music on me, but anyway, thank you. At least someone got that. Just basically, I just had it. Now I have it. Okay. Don't skip over when it comes to at least too positive in media. Fully acknowledge the negativity that happened, be it within a movie, a show, a game, heck, or even a news article. Do not skim over it, and you do not have to play the angry reviewer to express it.
All right. Cordero, sum up your points and give us one thing you learned tonight.
Yeah, like Silver Quill and Concert Cruiser touched on, it's important to acknowledge bad or acknowledge the negative when it happens, especially if somebody's suffering through something. You can't gloss over actual trauma. It doesn't work to gloss over trauma. So therefore, don't necessarily respond to negative with more negative, but acknowledge it, because if you have to acknowledge it in order for healing to begin.
All right. And what did you learn?
I don't know. I pretty much have the same opinion I started with, and I refuse to say the line.
Okay.
Well, how about you just hold up your hand and say, nothing.
You don't have to change your opinion on anything, but I imagine I would have imagined, at least I hope, that folks, when they come away from the debate, at least know something that they didn't know previously. That even if it doesn't,
I definitely gained perspectives from others tonight. But but I can't think of a way to like succinctly sum it up. But
All
yes,
right.
I did.
That's fair enough. DJ, sum up your points and one thing you learned tonight.
Well, much as our previous Osa said, there's definitely a lot of danger in toxic positivity, whether it be entertainment or real life. And you just have to accept that there's more to life than just positivity, and you have to be willing to accept that in order to actually have a fulfilling life. And just rejecting it is only going to cause more pain in the end. But as for learning things, it's definitely been not so much of a debate this time, but it's been a very good discussion that I think everyone's been able to walk away with a different understanding of where everyone stands with positivity and even negativity to some extent.
Don't tell anyone we can't change the show to Brony discussions. No one will watch.
Well, of course not. It's not zingy. It doesn't have that punch.
Exactly.
Brony's whole thing, punching things.
It's not my whole thing.
It's like 99% of your thing.
Listen, if y'all didn't make me so angry all the time, I wouldn't have to have it be 90% of my thing. All right.
I think your doors say otherwise.
Shush. I would. Okay, so to sum up my points for the night, I believe that the people that have problems with toxic positivity in life and that are that tend to be too positive in the art that they create or the art that they digest tend to have a lot of overlap if they're not, because they're more often than not the same person for various reasons. It definitely, if you live in that for too long, it will distort your vision of reality, which will have negative consequences outside and on those around you as well. And something I learned is that if you want to help someone, then stick to a more empathetic approach and do the best you can, but also be understanding that of what others are going through and their different perspectives from you. So that's what I learned tonight. And with that, I think we'll wrap up tonight's stream. This was a very good conversation, a little bit longer than I expected, but that's certainly not a bad thing. If you want to hang out with us some more tomorrow night at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be on Princess Heather Blossom's channel. She is doing chaos and crocheting, where she's she's crocheting some stuffed animals. They're very cute, and she does good work. And we just hang out and talk with the chat. So definitely pop in on that and come hang out with us for 2 hours. Next Friday, we'll be doing Friday Night Fights at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned to see what the game will be, because it's chosen by a random patron of the week. So if you'd like to get on the show, either of the shows, Brony Debates or Friday Night Fights, I'd love to have you. We just need to get you on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, where you get into the Discord server, and then you can make your suggestions for the topics or make your suggestions for the games that we play. Very grateful to all of my generous supporters on Patreon, especially the $10 and up tier, some of which include Cordero and DJ, who joined us tonight. There's also Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministry, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden, Girder, Senko, Kyle Christensen, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden, MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Sophia, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Check out all these guys' links in the description. They make some pretty good stuff. Cruiser, what do you got coming down the line for us? Any videos coming up soon?
Actually, yeah, I'll be releasing a video about explaining why people love anthros.
Alrighty then. That's going to be a change of pace for you.
Okay. Yeah, just something that I figure I can do on my own while Evan's animating the next Hoof Rock, which is going to be the Friendship Game soundtrack. And I will say, for that one, I do have a bit of a hot take for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
Not going to say it here.
By all means, yeah. Everybody go subscribe to Cruiser right now. Cordero, your film fiction is fully released by now, isn't it?
Yeah, has been for a while. The Trial of Princess Celestia is in 3 parts, up on FimFiction. It has almost 2,000 views, which made be small potatoes for some people, but that's baller for me. I'm happy with the success of it, and I'm really happy with how the story turned out.
All right. And Silver, do you have anything coming down the pipe for us?
She'll be coming down the mountain. Yes, indeed. Review of Common Ground is in the works. I need to record the audio, but that's like the last component needed.
Oh, really? That's usually the first for me. Or second, to be behind writing.
Well, yeah, I get the graphics out of the way. Then, like, recording is my final commitment.
Oh, okay.
Then I immortalize my voice. Ha. And let's see, I'm working on a few other projects that... there's one collaborative piece I can't really reveal too much about. And I am waiting on equipment, waiting on upgrades. Oh, this shipping problem. And I don't just mean who's the best ship.
I see.
I mean the actual commerce.
Mm-hmm.
You bring them down. You bring them down.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you so much, Silver, for coming on tonight and suggesting tonight's topic, and I can't wait to have you on again.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thanks for a good discussion.
Yep, you're very welcome. And with that, have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. God bless, and we'll see you on the next time. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night, everybody.